All right. I will go ahead and pass. You can go ahead and pass up your exit tickets. That has all of that, all of your answers and written responses on there. We will grade them and get them back to you to see if you are correct, if you're on point with the theme. So it's really important that you do that so that way we can see how well the lesson is in developing your ideas of theme and your interpretation of it. So thank you all. Great job. All right. Y'all have been super amazing during this entire lesson. What did we kind of, as we're doing our independent practice, what did we decide that the theme was? All right, so that's what I want to challenge you on now. We talked about character development. We talked about how we did a note catcher, a graphic organizer for all of the characters. We have our clear examples, but now I want you to use all that information to think about the way that the theme is throughout the story, okay? So you will use all of the information, use the questions that you responded to, use your annotations guide, and use your graphic organizer to answer this. You have about 5 minutes to do this. I don't want you to overthink it. I really want you to just say you believe the theme is and why. And the directions are also on the board. Like, what do you think that the theme is of this story? And tell me why you think that is the theme, okay? And then we're going to continue to evaluate that. So we're looking at how the characters have developed. We're looking at our personal connection to try to determine what the theme is of this story. Okay? Excellent job, you all. 5 minutes. What I want us to do is, now that we're at a certain place where we've already started reading, we're going to continue to read, but answer these questions that we see on our graphic organizer that are specific to the characters and how the characters are developing. And it's also going to continue to give us that connection to the theme of the story. Okay, so I definitely want us to take some time to, some independent time right now where we are going to, if you have not finished reading, which we all have mostly been reading together, there's just a few left that we're going to read. Then I want you to begin to answer these questions that are found on your graphic organizer. So you get to choose which questions you want to answer. There's about 3 questions that you can choose from. And you can see those questions on the board. So what are the similarities and differences that you share between your family, friends, and community and the characters in the story? That's our first question. Share in detail about a time where you may have been faced with the opportunity to change your opinion or how you've seen others change their minds and pass on whatever thoughts, right, that they've seen from other people. And then our third question is, have you had to stand up for someone else when others would not? And how did this make you feel? And what was the actual solution and outcome in those relationships? So this is a way for not only you to build content and connections, with your personal experience, but also with the text. Okay, so I definitely want you to still use that evidence that you're finding from the text to relate to these situations, and you have to choose at least 2. You've annotated during this time. You use the graphic organizer as a note catcher, and we've gone through a lot of these questions to kind of build up to how our characters are developing. If you're looking for a specific place, I would definitely say start maybe around page 95 to 107, because that is really going to be a hot spot, for some of this information. Okay, now here we are. We're in the middle. Let's pause for a second. We just started, and we did some annotations together. Let's go to that graphic organizer now, okay? So now we are understanding who the narrator is. We're seeing different characters come in. Who else do we see? We see Adele. We see Tommy. They're all entering into the story now. Let's do our character chart together. So we have Owen, who we know is the main character, who is actually what? Right, he's narrating the story for us. Excellent. With Owen narrating, what are some characteristics that we can say about him? One thing for me that comes to mind, and I'm just showing you how I would do this graphic organizer. One thing that comes to me with Owen is he's kind of shy and reserved, but he seems to be the leader of his friend group. So he may not be like a leader in the whole school realm, right? But he definitely is a leader in his friend group. All right, so we're going to write that down on our handout, and I know y'all all can see that on the board. Let's talk about Adele. What are some characteristics that we can talk about her? This is Owen's friend. How does the story describe Adele at the beginning? Excellent. Go ahead and write that down on your graphic organizer. Now we're going to jump to Tommy. How is the story describing Tommy? Right? This is not necessarily Owen's friend. This is a whole other person. Right? So he's reacting to these rumors that we're seeing. All right? So what is the narrator's description of these high schools? What does the narrator's description of high schools suggest about this particular community? So we talk about So this is a different way of going to high school, because these students they've been living in the same community since they were kids. They've all gone to elementary school together. They've traveled every single grade together, which some of us have, but in this particular setting, they've all lived in the same area and gone to school together. Some of us have switched schools. We've had to be able to have the choice to do that. In this community, in this Native American community, this is their only schools. They didn't have a choice. They live on the reservation, right? And so because of that, they are in a very close-knit and a smaller community. So what do we think that may push how Owen and Adele are interacting as friends, right? When they now see a new person. And they've never seen new in a long time, right? Nobody there is new. Great. Thank y'all so much for y'all are doing a great job with this discussion. So, great inferences. I'm glad that y'all all shared that out with your partners, and we shared that out whole class. And I can't wait for us to really see like our inference is going to be true. Let's continue reading. As we're reading, you will see me on the board annotating while we're reading. So if you want to just stop and look up and watch me annotate for a second, we will be stopping periodically. But I want you to also start to practice maybe your own annotations. My annotations is just a guide, okay? So I want you to stop and think about your own ways that you're choosing to annotate. All right, let's keep reading. All right, so I think that conversation is a great way for us to really jump into what we're doing and what we're talking about today. We're going to start off by reading. Everybody should have already gotten this handout when you came in, called Sheboygan Day. So you could go ahead and close your notebooks and move that notebooks to the side. You should have gotten a graphic organizer and the Sheboygan Day reading. Let's go ahead and get both of those out. The graphic organizer and the Sheboygan Day reading. You should have gotten that when you came in. All right. It seems like most of us are ready. Excellent. So we're going to start off first by just reading an excerpt of Sheboygan Day. We're going to just read a little bit about the author and a little bit of a summary about the story. So will somebody please read that for us? All right, awesome. Now that we have talked about that, okay, and we're talking about it, does everybody now kind of get a little bit of a connection as to why we started off our activity that way? Correct, because we're going to be talking about these characters. They go to a new school. They're in a whole new area across the country. And they're having to engage with more people that they've never met before, a whole new culture that they've never experienced before, right? So it was great for us to be able to build our own content and our own connections with it. So that way that when we go and we continue with the lesson, we can share not only our personal connections and interactions, but we can begin to see how the characters are developing throughout the story. All right, so after we are reading, and we just started reading the first paragraph, let's talk about who are the characters. Who are the characters that we see so far? Great. So we see Owen as a character so far. And yeah, we see the two new students as characters so far. So let's go ahead and pull our graphic organizer just so it can be right by our side, because our next steps is diving into that, okay? What is Sheboygan Day? Can somebody tell me what Sheboygan Day is? Excellent. Sheboygan Day is that Native American holiday that is more like a parade. And the new students have never ever experienced this. But for Owen, it's what? It's like a tradition for him. It's not a new experience for him. What is the setting of this story so far based off of what we've read? We know that the setting may change as we're continuing to read, but let's just talk about where we are right now. Great. So we're at school. That's great to know. Okay. So now that we have that kind of background knowledge and we're all kind of on the same page, let's make an inference. Okay. What do we think is going to be the relationship or connection between Owen and this new student? I want you to go ahead and write that down on your graphic organizer. What do you think? Make an inference. Remember, it's based off of what we already know. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just an inference. All right, great. Let's just take 3 people from the class to share out with us what their partner said. So we're not looking for you to share your experience. We want to hear what your partner's experience was. All right, so now that we've done that, let's go ahead and go and share with our partners just 1 to 2 minutes with your partner what you wrote. Good afternoon, class. So I am so excited that you all are ready and pumped and here on time to start our lesson. We're going to jump in right away with our do now. And our activity, I need everybody to get their journals out and turn to a clean page in your journal and go ahead and title it My Personal Experience with Something New, okay? I will say that again. And also the directions are here up on the board for you. My personal experience with something new. So as we're looking through this, as we're going to jump into something new, before we even get into that, I want us to kind of take a moment and reflect with one another about a time where we may have tried something new. So it may have been a new sport, a new activity. Maybe you started a new church and you have like a new church family, or it could be even something where you're like, I want to learn a new language. So I want you to definitely think in any experience that you may have had where you had to try something new. But not only do I want you to describe that experience, but I also want you to really think about how did you feel, when you were starting that new thing, or when you were putting yourself out there and trying something new or moving. How did that feel for you? All right. So we're going to write for about 5 minutes. Again, all the directions and the prompt that you need is on the board. We're going to write for about 5 minutes and just explain that. When we're done writing, we will share with our partners what we wrote, and then our partners will share out our experience, okay? We will jump to that in a second, but for right now, I just want everybody to have your pencils. I see everybody is almost ready. We're getting there. And just 5 minutes of writing nonstop. Please try not to stop during this time. If you are hesitant, or if you are like, I don't know where to start, you can create a list, okay? You can also start to just list some stuff. Or maybe you have multiple experiences. If you're a person that may say, I don't think I've ever tried anything new, I want you to think about maybe how you would feel if you tried something new, okay? So maybe you may not have started a new school, which I know everybody in here has at least started a new school, right? But I still want you to be able to just take a second to reflect and think about that. All right, 5 minutes on the timer. Go.